Welcome to this explainer. Do you know when someone goes missing at sea, it might literally seem like looking for a needle in a massive, churning haystack. But today, we're going to uncover the incredible science and methodology behind how authorities actually pull this off. As you'll see, search and rescue teams, they don't just rely on luck. No way. They rely on rigorous geometry, some seriously advanced acoustic tech, and highly structured procedures. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so let's set the scene with a chilling, real-world incident that went down in April 2026 off South Korea's east coast. Imagine a leisure diving trip near Jukbyong Port in Uljin County, which, by the way, is a super popular spot for recreational diving. Suddenly, things go terribly wrong. At exactly 10:33 a.m., the alarm is raised. Both a diver and the captain of the vessel are reported missing. Boom. This is the exact moment the clock starts ticking, triggering a massive, calculated response.
Section 1. Defining the search area.
When a frantic emergency call like that 10:33 a.m. alarm comes in, the absolute first challenge is figuring out where to even begin looking. I mean, the ocean doesn't stand still, right? And neither do the people lost in it. That brings us to lost data analysis. Authorities don't just guess. They immediately start compiling hard data. They interview eyewitnesses super fast before memories fade, and they map out wind and ocean currents. Then, it's like a giant puzzle. They partition the ocean into a grid of smaller cells, assigning a mathematical probability to each one to show the likelihood of the target actually being there. So why does this matter? Well, because every single minute wasted searching the wrong cell is a minute the ocean uses to push the target further away. It exponentially expands the search zone. It is a massive, high-stakes numbers game.
Section 2. Divers in the dark. So once that high-probability area is locked in, human divers are often the ones hitting the water first. But listen, marine environments are rarely crystal clear. Divers frequently operate in total zero visibility. They are literally feeling their way through the dark. You can't just swim around aimlessly hoping to bump into something. To ensure absolutely 100% area coverage without leaving a single blind spot, divers rely on strict geometric patterns. Depending on what we know about the location and the gear on hand, teams will deploy a circular search, a jackstay search, or a compass box pattern.
Let's zoom in on the circular search. This specific pattern is highly effective when you have a reasonably accurate known position. And the best part? It requires barely any equipment, essentially just a distance line anchored to a heavy object or a peg right on the bottom. The diver swims in a complete circle, holding that line taut. After making it back to the start point, the diver unreels just a little bit more line, extending the radius perfectly so that their next sweep overlaps the previous one. This ensures they don't miss a single inch of the seafloor. Just imagine having to do this in pitch blackness, trusting entirely in the tension of one single rope to keep you on a perfect mathematical track. Wild, right? Now, for larger, or maybe less certain areas, the jackstay method is an absolute game changer. The really crucial point of this setup is how it allows two divers to thoroughly clear a specific grid. Here's how it works. You have two heavy, fixed parallel lines laid down on the bottom. Then, a lighter, movable search line connects them. The divers swim along this movable line, feeling or looking for the target. Once they cross the grid, they just shift that movable line forward along the fixed tracks. It's methodical, extremely precise, and honestly, it works exactly like mowing a lawn, guaranteeing absolute coverage of that whole defined space.
Section 3. Deep water technology.
Okay, but what happens when the target is way, way down, like far beyond the physical reach or the safety limits of human divers? Well, that's where we turn to advanced marine sensors. There are two really vital deep water tools at play here: active sonar and passive pinger locators. Side-scan sonar actively emits acoustic sound waves that bounce off the seafloor to generate these incredibly detailed topographical images. Pinger locators, on the flip side, are completely passive. They don't emit any sound at all. They literally just listen intently for a specific frequency beacon, kind of like the 37 kHz ping of a sunken aircraft's black box. To actually deploy these sensors, search teams use a variety of high-tech platforms that let us plunge deep into the abyss. We're talking everything from surface vessels, dragging sonar arrays on long cables, mostly to keep them far away from the noisy ship engines, to remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, that are tethered by an umbilical cord. And you've got to think about how incredible autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, are in this context. These are fully robotic submersibles navigating the deep completely on their own. They use Doppler sonar and gyro compasses without needing any continuous human input. It's literally cutting-edge tech taking over exactly where human biology fails. Now, whether they're utilizing a towed array or one of those autonomous robots, the entire success of the mission hinges on a metric called swath width. You can think of this as the ultimate margin of error. Swath width is basically the lateral coverage of the seafloor captured by the sensor. Because the ocean is this incredibly dynamic, volatile environment, you can't just place search lanes right side by side. Those lanes have to overlap significantly, sometimes by as much as 50%. This is so a sudden ocean current or an unexpected drop in depth doesn't suddenly create a blind spot. It's a built-in safety net to absolutely guarantee we don't miss our target.
Section 4. The final outcome.
Bringing this all back to our real-world incident out of South Korea, how did the search actually conclude after that harrowing 10:33 a.m. emergency call? Well, against all odds, after drifting at sea for 12 grueling hours, the diver was miraculously spotted alive by a passing vessel. The Coast Guard swiftly stepped in to recover him in stable condition. It really is a powerful testament to the urgency and the massive structured net cast during these kinds of maritime emergencies.
As for the second individual involved, the captain, it remains a developing situation. Subsequent coverage in the Korean media has indicated that a deceased captain was indeed found in nearby waters. However, it's important to note that authorities have not officially established a link between this discovery and the initial diving incident. The whole situation is being handled with strict official protocols right now, so we are just waiting on further confirmation.
So from divers literally feeling their way through zero visibility waters along a jackstay line to autonomous robots scanning the deepest abysses with acoustic waves, the science of the search is just incredible. It really leaves us pondering the sheer scale of the sea and the relentless, highly structured methods we've developed to navigate its mysteries and bring people home. In the vastness of the ocean, how far will human ingenuity push to find the lost, and what new technologies will we pioneer next to ensure no one is ever truly lost at sea? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep your curiosity exploring.